Well, interesting team. He led the T-Wolves to the playoffs last year. Got a big win last night against the Clippers. Chris Finch has been around this league for a long time, the T-Wolves coach. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. And what's fascinating about you is your team went out, and a lot of people didn't get it, but you brought in Rudy Gobert. Mm-hmm. You had a big in Karl Anthony Towns. You have an emerging young star in Anthony Edwards. And then at the trading deadline, you bring in one of the smarter guys in the league, like a real grown-up, Mike Conley. Yeah. You're juggling them. Yeah. You are juggling stuff nonstop. So I want to start with that premise. Yeah. Is the trading deadline's interesting. I made the argument that Westbrook and Kyrie are such defined players with styles, it may have been the wrong move to inject them into a team at the deadline. Conley is different. Yeah. He's really like a mentor. He's one of the smartest guys. You can bring him, I think, kind of into any situation. Mm-hmm. So how do you see Conley and Edwards? Because right now, Anthony Edwards, is he lost? Where are you with him?
Yeah, I don't think he's lost at all. I think this is just another evolution of his growth. Facing so many different defenses, so many different looks, all this kind of stuff. He's got to keep figuring it out. Mike alongside of him is going to help him. One of the real reasons that you bring in a guy like Mike at this point is when we get Cat back and we have Ant. We feel he's the perfect bridge between those guys, as well as bringing an existing chemistry with Rudy Gobert. Which is a guy we still have yet to really maximize as a player. Yeah. And to your point, about the trade deadline and bringing in players like our season has been one in flux through injuries or illnesses, right. And that's kind of the league nowadays. I think as a coach, if you don't maintain a flexible enough system to keep integrating all the roster changes that you have, whether it be load management or injuries or illnesses or trades or whatnot, it becomes really, really hard. But fortunately, we've got enough guys who are able to play in a lot of different styles, and that helps us.
And by the way, we love Anthony Edwards, but I said this earlier today. In college football, you can get a 24-year-old man, and he's been hard coached for 4 to 5 years. He may have redshirted. Yeah. You get an AAU kid where he may not have been coached for years, and then 1 year briefly of college, and then he's on to you at 19. Yeah. And so we want our players to be great and defined. They're kids. Yeah. And so with Anthony Edwards, he was enormously gifted year one. Year two, we're like, what happened? He just appeared. Where is he in terms of, there's some hero ball going on. Where is it hard for you to coach younger players?
Yeah. No, it's not hard at all to coach younger players. The ones we have I'm fortunate they like to be coached hard. They respond well to being coached hard. I think Anthony's had a really good year 3. For him, it's been a lot about building habits, not just about what you're doing on the floor, but what habits are you building as a professional, how you eat, how you work, how you prepare, how you sleep. These are things that most young players don't come in the league with. And teaching those habits is just as much a part of our job as a staff and an organization as it is teaching them skill and skill acquisition. Yeah. So I'm very pleased with Anthony's growth. He plays, if you say hero ball, he doesn't shy away from the moment, and that's what we love about him. That's what we do.
Even his rookie year, he was like that.
Yeah, and then last year in the playoffs, going into the playoffs, I had a little concern that he would try to do too much, right? And from that, maybe not have success. But he met the moment there, okay. And he still has some inconsistencies he's got to work out, and that's again backed up by just getting better and better habits. He'll even admit to you that he's out there just playing a lot of times. He's not thinking through the game, and that doesn't mean he's unintelligent. It just means he's just relying on his instinct.
And he's young.
And now it's just about getting enough reps in enough situations where he can see it. And bringing in a guy like Mike, who's in his ear right now next to him. And Mike understands that, he's got a lot of things that we need him to do. But first and foremost is help Anthony develop as a player.
You mentioned load management. He and I are on different sides. So Jason McIntyre believes that the reason guys play longer now is because they take nights off. I think it's because of nutrition, the private jets, the training staffs. Now, and it's also not a hand check league. You don't get tackled. What bothers me, because I'm an NBA fan, is a couple nights ago I want to watch Giannis and KD. They both don't play. And there was a game a couple weeks ago, Celtics-Lakers, Saturday night was fantastic. All the starters played, that I recall. And it was like, oh, okay, this feels like a playoff game. So whether you love it or not, you don't want a player at 4:30 telling you don't want to play. But where do you land on load management?
Yeah, I mean, it's a necessary evil in our game. And, the one of the fastest growing departments in professional sports is the performance department, with sports scientists and all the people that are now giving us so much data about resting and recovering and being ready to play. I personally, obviously we have to lean into what they say. It's not our decision as coaches. We want to push our players to play. Anthony's a great example. Anthony's played every game this season, and we feel that matters, and particularly as a young player. Unfortunately, in our league, and I've said this before, resting has become a bit of a status symbol. You're so good that they don't want to play you tonight because they need you later. Well, you're a team like ours, you're 500 and you're fighting for your life. You got to play every night, and that's really what the league should be all about anyway. And so, we understand like there's nights that you're going to, guys might not be 100%, but give us, as much as you got.
Thank you.
And the thing that we can do to maybe alleviate that is to continue to thin the back-to-backs. Let's take away the excuses for guys to not play, and back-to-backs happen to be a big one.
I'm going having beers with buddies tonight. I'm going to play hurt tomorrow. Are you? J-Mac? I'm just telling you right now, I'm going to go meet my buddies for a little bowl of pasta and a beer. You got to play. Sometimes you got to play hurt. Bad night's sleep. Okay, so I argue that this is the greatest the league's ever been. Yeah. Now you're balancing some science stuff and some analytics. But whenever I hear guys don't play defense, I always kind of roll my eyes and think, yeah, but the game is so international and European and so global. You're getting guys now, every big can shoot. Mm-hmm. It's added a complete dimension. How do you defend the corner three? When the Warriors had Durant, I don't know how you defend it. Since you've been in the league, is that Warriors team with Durant the greatest team you've seen?
Yeah, probably. Just the gravity of putting that many skilled players, that much shooting on the floor. I think that's the league has never been as skilled with as much shooting as ever. And it makes the defense look at times, pretty mediocre.
Yeah.
It's really about trying to cover as much space as possible, and you can't, it's like spread offense in football. How do you cover it all when you give optionality to really good and skilled quarterbacks? It's impossible, right?
That's right.
And so now, and they've taken away a lot of the physicality, which we see come back during the playoffs. But during the regular season, the physicality is not there to be able to slow these guys down.
You can't ask these guys to play 82 nights of Purdue basketball defense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I think the game is fluid. It's kind of back to me. It's back to closer to its roots. It's interchangeable parts, positionless players, ball movement, player movement, and and Steve Kerr and his staff and the Golden State Warriors are really kind of. They were at the forefront of that revolution. And like most leagues, it's a copycat league, and everybody wants to play that way when they see success.
Well, I'm going to give you a coach that you go up against.
Yeah.
And guys that I like, I don't know Eric Spoelstra really well, but I know him. If I say Spoelstra, give me a paragraph on what he is and what makes him hard to coach against.
I mean, their teams play super physical, never beat themselves. They what they're going to do. They do it so well that it still matters. You can't really impact it. I always say that whenever you play a Spo coach team, the first time you play them, that you learn a lot and you learn quickly, and they pretty much beat you up. When you go out and play them again, it's all about making adjustments. Obviously he's an outstanding end of game situational coach. Yeah,
he's a great situational coach.
Yeah,
Steve Kerr.
Yeah, Steve. I think when we play those, what he did is he really kind of just changed the entire way that team played when he came in. Gives a lot of freedom to his players, as you see. But he's a lot more fiery and competitive than you would think.
Oh God! Yeah.
And that I think is infused through his team.
Yes. So I'm going to ask you about a player. So I have been very reluctant to embrace Denver. He likes Denver, and I know Jokić is great. Hard guy to defend. You remember Sabonis. Mm-hmm. So I covered Sabonis for years. Outside of Shaq, everybody struggled with him. Yeah. He was a refrigerator. You couldn't move him. Shaq was the only guy, and Shaq moved everybody. Jokić has a little bit of a feel. like that. Tremendous passer, big IQ, doesn't need all the accolades, couldn't give a rip. I worry about him defensively. I worry about if he's off or gets in foul trouble, who's the two? Draymond's defense and the tricks don't work against him. Yeah. Am I underselling Denver? Do you buy them as a playoff team?
Oh, I for sure buy them as a playoff team. I think, when you have a guy like Jokić, you're always going to have a chance. He basically generates so much offense all by himself.
Great pass.
For himself and for everybody else, of course. The key is, in the playoffs, everyone wants to kind of muddy up the game. They're going to go small. But the key to being and staying big when teams go small in the playoffs is, I think, scoring. Can the big punish the smalls enough in the playoffs?
Right.
And he's going to be able to do that. So that's why some of these teams that traditionally maybe have gone small in the playoffs to have great success, whether it be Golden State or the Clippers, they might struggle, and they're going to have to bring double teams. And bringing a double team to a guy who's that good of a passer is not always the best thing to do either.
I think the best team in the league, and I think by adding Jay Crowder, they add another get-a-bucket guy. Yeah. I think Milwaukee is going to beat Boston. I worry sometimes with Boston if Jaylen Brown's off, it becomes very Tatum-centric. Marcus Smart's a solid offensive player. Robert Williams' health concerns me. Yeah. I think Milwaukee's really a handful. Very rarely is Giannis off, but it's Middleton, it's Ingles, it's Drew Holiday. It's just a lot of – Golden State's got this quality now. Jordan Poole can be a bucket guy. Wiggins can. The best team I've seen on their best nights in the league to me is Milwaukee. You faced them. Your opinion on them?
Yeah, well, they're not even healthy. I mean, they have Middleton who's still working his way back. So I agree, and they've got the experience of playing together. That nucleus has been together. They play both sides of the ball for sure. Ingles is going to help them with his playmaking and defensive versatility in the playoffs. I mean, I think I couldn't agree more. It's going to be interesting for sure. Both teams are kind of very physical. A lot of the East is a little more intriguing maybe in the West right now when it's the top of the table race. Yeah. And it's a fun one to watch, but it's hard to go against Giannis. I mean, the guy is like superhuman when you're out there.
Insane. So you coached AD. You were on Alvin Gentry's staff.
Yep.
I like him, but I do think I think some players age more quickly than others. I thought about 3 years ago that was the ceiling. There's been some slight erosion. When you play with LeBron, Kevin Love and Bosch discovered this. This has always been my theory on LeBron, is that LeBron doesn't want his big to get in the middle of the lane because when he loses confidence on his jumper, he wants to go to the basket, score at the basket. He'll get the confidence back. But he can ebb and flow as a jump shooter with confidence. He's gone on, even this year he's had moments. And so Anthony Davis, unlike Bosch or Love, is not a great shooter. Those guys are really tremendous. I don't know if AD and LeBron have great chemistry. I think they're both chill guys that they both want to win games. Yeah. What did you make of AD? He had a soft label for a while. What's the perfect way to use him?
Yeah, one thing I love about AD is he'll get you 35 points and you don't have to run a single play for him. He'll score all ways that you possibly can. He'll get out in transition. He'll make an occasional three. He'll get a rim, lob dunk, offensive rebound, make an elbow jumper. You can throw it to him in the post. And I think if you're just playing kind of in the flow and not trying to force feed him and ask him to be a scorer, I think it's when he's at his best. Because he's really long, athletic. He's super skilled. He's got great touch, and when he's kind of playing just on the move and filling space and playing off of guys, that's when I think he's really, really hard to guard because he can do all these things, and you really don't have to call his number.
So when you have Harden, very ball centric, very gifted, and I think Dallas is going through a little bit of this with Luka. You're talking a prolific top 10 scoring talent of all time. Kobe was a lot of this. How do you have a discussion with a Harden or Luka in their prime? If you play this way, you're going to be exhausted by the playoffs. You have the ball too much. Was it a challenge with Harden? Because he would get to the postseason and he looked shot.
Yeah.
Is it a challenge, you think, for Dallas or when you've been with one of those all time, you couldn't stop Harden, you can't stop Luka.
Yeah. I think for me the challenge is this: like when you have a guy who's kind of that ball dominant and that's can create that much offense and so much relies on him. Those teams, those types of players can make average teams really good. But how do you make a good team great? And point. That's all about sharing the floor. How do you share the floor with the talent that's around you? And what sacrifices do you make? Because again, in the playoffs, everything gets ramped up in the playoffs as it does in all these sports.
And the refs swallow the whistle.
The game planning goes to another level. Adjustments come a lot faster. As a staff, we have a hard line on what we're willing to live with, what we're not willing to live with, and at that point in time, it's a lot easier to say this guy's not going to beat us because if you take away his impact, which is 90% of the game, now this team has to play in a wholly different way than they've done all season long.
Yeah, it is. You have a fascinating team. So you've got guys who are not as gifted offensively, Gobert, but you need to figure out a way to get him the ball.
Yeah.
You have an ascending superstar. You have a veteran guy in Mike Conley. And then you have Karl Anthony Towns, who is gifted as heck. He can drive me nuts sometimes situationally, but it feels like your team, that it's not a talent issue. It is a lot of personalities.
Yeah.
Is that, I always said Joe Torre, I didn't know if he was a great baseball manager, but he was the stepdad you never wanted to tick off. Mm-hmm. So he could balance Jeter and A-Rod and egos and the media. Your team feels like there's a lot of personalities, age gaps, international, domestic. Yeah. Is it a hard team to coach, the balance?
Yeah, I mean, when you put it that way, it seems like it would be hard. But fortunately, they're all good guys, and they want to make it work. But we do have a lot of different players at different points in their career, or as we talk about their timeline, what timeline are we on here? And but I also feel that the pieces do fit together. We've not really seen what we can do because of the Cat injury. We've played 45 games without him. We do know that there is a good chemistry between Cat and Rudy. And in the Rudy trade, listen, when your best player at the time is Karl Anthony Towns, you're not going to go small. You're not taking him off the floor. So we thought, well, the rest of the league is, zigging. We might zag and see if it works. Like, we're probably not better as a small ball team than the Golden States of the world. So let's try to be different. And Rudy was a guy who basically plugged a lot of needs, and we feel that he has done a great job in that. And now it's just rounding out those pieces around that fit with with Rudy, Cat, and Ant, and that's really our core that we're prepared to move forward with.
Okay, so Draymond Green, he strangely, I have a podcast company, and he's one of my employees. He's very coachable.
Yeah,
incredibly coachable. He's a great employee. He drives people crazy. So I always liked that guy. There was a guy named Bobby Jones who was a much better offensive player than like a Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
But he was just, Jerry Sloan had this element. It's just a pain in the butt if he guarded you. And Rodman and Draymond Green. Coaching against Draymond Green, does he drive you insane? Where do you land on Draymond?
I mean, he's a great player. He's a winner. He's one of the all-time winners that we've had in the league. He does all the things necessary to win and also cements that team together. He's happy to walk away with 14 assists if that's what it takes, or guard the best player every night, or is always in the right help spot. It feels like when you're playing the Warriors, there's two Draymonds out there. There's the one that's guarding the ball, and there's the one that's guarding everybody else. And so for a long, long time, if you don't have the right personnel and you go up against those guys, and having Draymond on the floor, he's so smart defensively. He literally is like having a sixth man out there.
And by the way, have you ever had to tell a player, okay, we're playing Draymond tonight, do not let him get in your head?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've been in games where he's gotten into people's heads and taken them right out of the game.
Really?
And usually after they've had, a little bit of their way with them. So then he just moves to the psychological warfare.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.